Today I'm here to share with you my observations about the cultural dangers facing Europe and why a conservative future for the old continent would help save it. A conservative Europe would stand for strong borders, the rule of law, liberty, a strong defense, or peace through strength, and its Christian heritage. I come from a land which used to be majority Christian, ethnically Greek, Armenian, or Assyrian for centuries. But this land has been Islamized. Today, most people there are of Greek or Armenian descent, but as our ancestors were forcibly converted to Islam after the Islamic conquest of our land, the memory of a Christian past has disappeared. That land is Anatolia, which was once the heartland of the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire. It sits within modern Turkey's borders. The Islamization of Christian Anatolia and the Armenian highlands, which once also had sizable Jewish communities, started in the 11th century. It came through a military invasion by Muslim Turks who were originally from Central Asia. The invasion and the subsequent Islamization took place in phases throughout the centuries. Under Muslim Ottoman rule, Christians and Jews were marked as dhimmis, second-class citizens whose presence was tolerated in an Islamic state. They were only allowed to stay alive if they paid a high protection tax, also known as the jizya. The cities in today's Turkey were built and enriched by Greeks, Armenians, Assyrians, and other non-Turkish peoples. These people are the ancestors of most people in Turkey. They are my ancestors too. And they were forcibly Islamized. Today, almost no Christian is left in those cities in Turkey. The current Greek population of Constantinople or Istanbul is approximately 1,200. Today, only 0.1% of Turkey's whole population consists of Christians and Jews. This population collapse is a result of a centuries-long oppression of non-Muslims, which included forced conversions, massacres, pogroms, deportations, and discriminatory laws, among others. In the city where I grew up, the Italian priest of the only remaining local Catholic church in the region was shot in the back and murdered by a Muslim in 2006. The cultural and religious heritage of Christians, including their churches, schools, and cemeteries, have been almost completely destroyed. These harsh realities have given me first-hand knowledge of how radical and threatening Islam could be to the entire human race, not only to Europe. Today, Turkey, my country of birth, is ruled by a pro-jihad government that tries to spread Islamism throughout the entire region by supporting terror groups such as Hamas and ISIS. Today, we are witnessing a similar process taking place in Europe. This time, it did not start with a military invasion. The Islamization of Europe is taking place because of mass Muslim migration. Mass migration and Islamization threaten not only Europe's security, but also Europe's very identity and soul. A false and misguided policy of tolerance and a policy towards unlimited, unvetted migration has brought much of Europe to the brink of demographic replacement. Official population data of many countries confirm this reality. It's mostly the globalists who tell us that mass migration is a policy which would solve Europe's problems, such as an aging population and declining birth rates. They tell us that all cultures are equal and that Islam is a religion of peace. These are all lies. The truth is that the streets of Western Europe are no longer safe for Christians, Jews, and other non-Muslims, including ex-Muslims. A lack of safety is particularly apparent for women and children. Never before in history have governments allowed droves of military-aged men from a hostile culture to invade their countries through mass migration, and once there, to kill or abuse its citizens. Mass Muslim migration has imported many problems to Europe, including increased crime, murders, grooming gangs, rapes of women and children, a very hateful, murderous, and violent type of anti-Semitism. Islamic anti-Semitism, as well as decreased freedom of speech. This invasion and all of its terrible consequences is absolute government tyranny for one simple reason. Has any EU government asked its citizens whether they approve of mass migration? Instead, the opposite has occurred. For instance, many teachers in England reportedly engage in self-censorship so as not to offend their Muslim students. In France, teachers are threatened with death, and are even murdered by Islamists. Young Europeans increasingly see that it's their rights and liberties, their own identities, and their very own civilization which are at serious risk. Yet, when they express their very real concerns based on their own personal observations and their very lives, the response received from globalist politicians is name-calling. They are called Islamophobes, bigots, or racist. And their questions remain unanswered. They are silenced and oppressed. The existential questions that Europe faces today are, will Europe remain Europe? Or will Europe become Eurabia? Will Europe retain its Christian faith, or will it become a majority Muslim continent? Will Europe have strong borders or no borders? A conservative future would save Europe, and young people should lead this conservative movement. Everything young people in Europe hold dear, their culture, freedom of speech, religious freedom, their very civilization is at stake. The globalists do not offer any solutions. They cause these problems. So many generations have fought to keep Europe alive and to turn it into the world's greatest civilization. Yet today, Europe is struggling at the hands of globalists who have woke anti-Western agendas. Globalists are attacking this beautiful continent, particularly its religion, Christianity. This particular manifestation of globalization should concern us all. It manifests as the promotion of anti-Western and more specifically anti-Christian culture in Europe, and consequently the Islamization of the European continent. I've seen firsthand what Islamization does to civilization and freedom, so I find what's gradually happening to Europe devastating. The Islamization of Europe must be stopped. If it's not, it will be the end of European civilization as we know it. If Europe is to survive and to have a future as Europe, that future will have to be conservative. Conservative in the sense of being culturally restorative, making the future of Europe and the future of conservatism in Europe inseparable. Thank you for listening.